They say some places don't want to be found. Daniel didn't believe that until the day he stepped off the bus into Blackwood Village. The moment his boots touched the cracked, frost-bitten road, the air felt different. It wasn't just cold, it was heavy, like it had been holding its breath for years. The wind whispered through crooked wooden houses, carrying with it the faint smell of damp earth and something else, something metallic. The village looked frozen in time. Wooden boards sagged, paint flaked away in long curling strips, and windows seemed darker than they should be. Curtains moved slightly when he passed, but no one stepped outside. Not a single smile, not a single word. Just the weight of eyes watching him from the shadows. He tried to greet a woman carrying a basket, but she immediately turned away, her pace quickening, as if afraid even to be seen near him. A man stacking wood outside his cabin dropped the logs and disappeared inside, slamming the door shut. It was as if the whole place was holding onto a secret they were terrified to share. Finally, at the far end of the narrow dirt street, he saw an old man sitting alone on a bench hunched over a wooden can. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his cloudy eyes locked on Daniel with unsettling focus. Daniel approached, desperate for someone to talk to. "Excuse me, I'm looking for Blackwood Forest," he said. For a long moment, the old man said nothing. His lips trembled, as if the words themselves carried a weight too heavy to speak. Then, in a voice like dry leaves scraping across stone, he finally muttered, "If you go in, you'll never come out the same." There was no humor in his tone, no smile to soften the warning. His grip tightened on his cane until his knuckles turned bone white. Daniel tried to force a nervous laugh, but his voice cracked. "Is that a legend?" The old man turned his head away, staring down the road as if the conversation had ended, or as if saying more might summon something neither of them wanted to see. Daniel stood there for a few seconds, the cold pressing deeper into his skin. He told himself it was just small-town superstition, but deep down, he already knew the truth. Something in Blackwood Village was watching him. Daniel tried to shake off the old man's warning. The village's dead silence, the strange way people avoided him, and that single chilling sentence, it all only fueled his curiosity. In his mind, he told himself it was just an old story, a superstition passed down to keep outsiders away. But somewhere deep inside, a thin thread of unease was winding tighter. By the time he reached the edge of the village, the daylight already felt dimmer. Before him stood the wall of Blackwood Forest, towering ancient trees packed so tightly together that the sunlight barely slipped through. The air at the tree line was cooler, damp, and carried a faint, earthy smell like soil that had never been disturbed. Daniel stepped forward, one foot crossing into the forest's shadow. And instantly the world changed. The wind died. The distant hum of the village vanished. No birdsong, no rustle of leaves, nothing. Even his own footsteps sounded wrong, muffled as though the ground itself was swallowing the noise. The silence was so absolute that it pressed against his eardrums, making his head feel heavy. He froze, scanning the trees. At the edge of his vision, something seemed to shift, a shadow sliding between trunks. But when he turned, there was nothing. Just the stillness, so deep, it felt alive. And for the first time, Daniel wondered if the old man's warning had been less of a threat and more of a truth. Daniel's breath grew shallow as he pushed deeper into Blackwood Forest. The silence pressed on him like a physical weight, making every step feel heavier than the last. His camera hanging around his neck swung slightly as he walked, recording everything. Not because he expected to find something, but because he felt an unshakable need to document whatever was happening. The trees grew denser here. Their trunks were twisted, scarred, as though something had clawed them long ago. A faint mist crawled across the forest floor, coiling around his boots like cold fingers. He tried to shake the thought, but his chest tightened with an unspoken fear. Then the camera's lens caught something. He froze there between two massive trees, stood a pale figure. Its skin was almost white, its outline faint against the darkness. It didn't move. It didn't sway like the branches. But Daniel felt its attention, sharp, heavy, and inescapable, locked on him. "What the hell is that?" he whispered, raising the camera. The figure didn't flinch, but the moment he tried to look at it directly, it vanished. No sound, no movement, just gone. Heart pounding, he lowered the camera, scanning the trees. Nothing. Only the same unending stillness. But as soon as he turned to leave, his camera feed flickered. It was back, standing in the exact same place. Watching him, Daniel's throat went dry. This isn't possible. And in that moment, he knew something in this forest was playing with him. Hours later, Daniel sat in the cramped room of the old inn he had rented for the night. The walls were thin, the smell of damp wood lingering in the air, but his mind was somewhere else entirely, still trapped in that cursed forest. He had been replaying the events in his head over and over, but now it was time to see what the camera had captured. He placed the camera on the table, connected it to his laptop, and pressed play. The faint hum of the laptop fan was the only sound in the room. The footage rolled, showing his shaky walk through the forest, the mist swirling at his feet. The oppressive silence pressing down his own nervous breathing filled the audio. Then came the moment between the trees, the pale figure. He froze the frame, leaning closer to the screen. The figure was faint, almost translucent, but it was there. He stared for several seconds, his pulse quickening, before pressing play again. And that's when he saw it. In one sudden frame, something moved, not in front of him but behind him. A thin, bony hand, white as chalk, reaching out from the shadows, its skeletal fingers curling toward his shoulder. Ibbling, tears streaming down his face, tears he didn't even remember shedding. His eyes were unfocused, staring at nothing. His lips moving as if whispering something, though the audio was silent. He felt his stomach twist. He didn't remember any of this. He didn't remember sitting down. He didn't remember crying. And he definitely didn't remember that hand. But the worst part wasn't the missing time. It was the fact that in the final few frames before the glitch, the hand had already been resting on his shoulder. Night had fully descended, swallowing the forest in thick darkness. A cold mist curled between the trees, twisting and shifting like something alive. Daniel's breath came in short, panicked bursts as he pushed forward, his boots sinking into the damp earth. Every shadow seemed to lean toward him, every tree groaning under the weight of something unseen. Then, without warning, the trees broke apart into a wide clearing, bathed in a pale, unnatural glow. The air here felt heavier, colder, as if the night itself was holding its breath, and there it was. The same pale figure standing far ahead, perfectly still. Its thin frame was silhouetted against the ghostly light, its head slightly tilted, watching. The silence was unbearable, pressing in on Daniel's ears until the only sound was the pounding of his own heartbeat. His camera trembled in his hands. He whispered to himself, "This can't be real," but the figure didn't blink, didn't move, didn't breathe. And yet Daniel felt its gaze pierce straight through him. Then the footage cut. The next thing he knew, he was waking up in the village at dawn, lying on the dusty ground. No one knew how he got there. He remembered nothing of leaving the forest, nothing of how he escaped. But when night came again, he saw it standing outside his window in the darkness, closer than before. Some places are not meant to be explored. Some doors once opened, never close. If you value your peace, never seek what hides in the shadows, because sometimes the shadows find you first. Like, share, and subscribe if you dare.